Hello, hello, New York Liberty and women's basketball fans. We are back to discuss what ultimately is a New York Liberty win, Brian. However, we have some questions that we at least are going to broach on this show, if not answer. That's coming up on this episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. Gotta get up, gotta get up. Hey, women's basketball fans, welcome to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, brought to you by Black Rosie Media and hosted by Erica L. Ayala. All right. Erica L. Ayala here, back with Brian Florentin. And yeah, this week you get a double feature. We had Misha with us on Tuesday, where we were talking a little bit about this game. We never really got to the Minnesota game in any detail. We had a pretty jam-packed show. But Brian, I knew that we were going to want to talk after this New York Liberty game because it just seemed like it could be a tipping point one way or another. And in some ways, it feels like we got a little bit of both. Yeah. The New York Liberty got the win, so that's the good news. The bad news is that the New York Liberty blew upwards of a 15-point lead and had a little bit of trouble closing at times. But again, the good news, if we want to sandwich this, is that they figured it out. So those are kind of the broad strokes things, Brian, but this was a game in Brooklyn. So I'm always eager to get your feedback, especially what you were hearing from the team post-game after they get an 81-78 win over the Phoenix Mercury.
Yeah, one thing that I found interesting was that I think they all acknowledge that the process is still a little bit, it can stand to clean up a little bit. Like the first quarter was so dynamic. Like you saw the full vision of what the offense looks like when everything is firing on all cylinders as it was. And gradually, as the game wore on, they sort of went away from getting to the inside and settling more for 3-pointers. Like I noticed that they'd run like one pick and roll action, and then it's a good shot. It'll be a good shot, but it's like, can you hunt something a little bit better within the flow of the offense? And then sometimes you have these sort of going the other way where you're passing too much. Like there was one instance where I think it ended in a Benijah travel where it's like the ball was zipping all over the place. And then on the fourth pass, Leo Fibeck was wide open. And then she made that one extra pass. And it's like, Leo, you're here to shoot. Like, I appreciate the unselfishness, but I'm like, big dog, you right there. Put it up. You there, that kind of thing. So it's a balance in that. It's a tricky balance in that regard. And one thing that I thought was super interesting in the post game, John Quell mentioned that they played with more intentionality in the fourth quarter, which I thought bore out in watching it in real time. But I think also just in how they got their offense in the quarter really sort of like worked to what they were saying. And Benijah and KT weren't in the big media scrum on Zoom. Like we had individuals with them. And they mentioned that in the fourth, it was almost like everyone sort of like naturally realized, okay, we have the size advantage in the post. It's going right there every time.
Well, I mean, yeah. And that's a question that Sandy was asked, I guess, about kind of what the best use case is. The question, basically what I believe the question was really getting at is, does Sandy think that Jonquel Jones got enough touches in the paint? And I think it was Sandy, but then also I think it was Sabrina and JJ who spoke post game. And I think all of the people who spoke, so Sab, Sandy, and JJ, but especially Sab and Sandy, talked about, once we got those looks in the paint later in the game, that's when we were able to get things back. And so I think that goes to a lot of what you're talking about, Brian, which is decision making. And I see in the comments, like, listen, I know a lot of people are going to be critical of Sandy Brondello, and I understand that. I love this comment from Jen. I think the little bald baby Jesus we won. I mean, it kind of felt that way, Brian. We talked about it on Tuesday's episode. Is it a make or break in the literal sense? No, because we're not even 10 games into the season yet. That being said, it felt like a critical time if the New York Liberty were going to start figuring things out that they had to do that. Sandy needs to figure out how to play her MVP. Stewie isn't getting enough touches or plays. Now, I think this is interesting, and we kind of alluded to that a little bit on Tuesday's show. My take on this is that Stewie is doing a lot defensively. And, I think that impacts if she's doing a lot of things defensively, if she's getting a lot of rebounds, even if she's the one making the outlet pass, then, she's literally in some instances the last person running up the floor because she's either dribbling up or she, again, just made the outlet pass to get the offense going the other way. So that's a little bit of what I'm seeing. And I wonder if that can be some of what this comment is. But I want to get your thoughts, Brian. We talked about JJ, and I want to come back to JJ. But what do you think about Stewie? Is Stewie being utilized, especially on the offensive side, the way that we think is most effective for the New York Liberty?
Okay, so kind of related to that, I want to circle back to a thought you've had for the past year, and that you wonder when you'll start to sort of see like Sabrina sort of drive the car a little bit more. And I think we're starting to get there. And I say that in the sense of when in the first quarter, she had it dialed in. Like she really had the offense flowing. Like she's leading the transition, she's leading the break, she's doing all these things well. And this is going to tie to the fourth quarter too, as well. I'll circle back to that point in a minute. But I think you're starting to see Sabrina utilize more of her offense. Like those drives to the paint have been essential. Like the team isn't shooting 3-pointers, and it's not limiting Sabrina's game that much because she's getting downhill all the time.
Yeah, she again led the team in points. She had 22. I think Tosh had 20, 21, something like that.
Yeah. And like something I looked up before the game last night, Sabrina inside the restricted area this season is shooting 78%, which is a huge jump. Like I think like last year it was at, I think it's either last year or 22, it was at 54%, and then another year at 60%. So having your lead guard get in the paint like that and finish over trees in that fashion, and she's getting to the free throw line a lot more. And like before, she'd always get pissed that she wouldn't get foul calls, but she's getting foul calls now. And you have your 90% free throw shooter getting to the line all the time. That's a huge plus.
That's huge.
Plus. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of those things where you're controlling the pace of the game because you can set up your half those moments where you can rest up coming back in. So you're not, even if you're playing fast, you still have those pockets of rest in between. So you can sort of get yourself acclimated. So I think that in the context of Stewie sort of turning her game down a little bit, I think is okay. And did Damien say 2,000 points? That's a lot of points in one season. Yeah. Maybe not. Hold on.
I think overall,
I feel like if she gets
like just a career, where is she at with
maybe
career points?
Okay.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Maybe. I feel like if she got 2,000 points, Erica, if she got 2,000 points this season, someone would give her an MVP vote. And I feel like our friends in Nevada would be pissed off again. So I'm like, let's just for the sake of everyone's mentions, let's just not do that. Just not.
Oh my gosh, I'm weak. I cannot. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But to circle it back a little bit more, something interesting I thought, and I asked Sandy about it indirectly, but to start the fourth quarter last night, KT was in the first five, and then Sloop came back with like maybe 3:30 to go, and that entire time it was Sabrina running the show. Like Sabrina's running point, she's initiating everything, and it looked kind of good. Like it was choppy moments because it was an intense game. Like they had to sort of like scrap it out literally in some instances to get it back. But I like how she's running things. You know, when Sloot is on the bench, Sab, you dial it up a little bit more. Like you find pockets for people. You're great in transition. You're always hitting either Stewie or Nyara on the break. Like you know what you're doing, and we trust you. Like we trust you. We trust Benijah because she's playing the most minutes of all the starters these days. So she has that trust in them. And I think for Stewie, just to sort of bring it home to her, you can dial it back. Like I much rather her cut down her 3-point attempts to sort of get more things going to the basket, because the threes haven't been there for her. Like when she's in like that sort of 10-12 foot area, she's automatic. And you get those moments where defenders have to W, and you're a great passer, so you can always hit the people where you need to. So I think as far as utilization, just sort of figuring out where to sort of get her in those right boxes, so to speak. But
Yeah.
I think as far as process goes, it can be better. Like once they start hitting the 3-pointers, I think everything is going to be a lot smoother and easier for them.
Yeah.
But so far, I'd say a solid B with potential to get higher.
Okay, yeah, I was thinking like B minus. So
Mhm.
it's not terrible. It's not awful. It's not embarrassing, as we talked about on the
Yeah.
last episode. I can understand why people want to go there. And I think that's an extreme. I think that's a little bit of a sensationalization of narratives instead of what's happening on the court. For example, I've said this before, that's a good Chicago team. I didn't the way Minnesota was playing, I was like, New York has to play their best game of this season if they want to win against Minnesota, because Minnesota is locked in. New York, not quite yet. And I thought we saw a really good version of New York early on. Brushes of brilliance, as I like to say. I'm not going to pull up the lead tracker right now, but the lead tracker was New York Liberty to begin with, a little blip for Phoenix. And then a lot of the back end of the first quarter, the second quarter, and early into the third, we see, at least by the momentum tracker, that was New York Liberty. But those peaks for Phoenix were short bursts, but lethal. And that's what we're not seeing from New York right now. They're not able to either maintain the level that they come in with, like their highest point. I love that it started early in the Phoenix game, because we've seen them have a late start, even at home. But now it's that balancing act, right? And those things are fixable. Now, when it comes to, and yes, okay, 1,500 career points, and I did look it up. So Sab right now is at 1,761, 1,761 points career. She has 115 this season alone. Her highest in the WNBA is the 2022 season. And she had 626 in that season alone. So just wanted to go back to that. Now, this is an interesting question, Jen, and we talked about this, Brian, at the end, somewhere towards the end of our last episode with Misha. I have noticed that Benijah is a little out of sync. The shots aren't falling. She's missing some shots. Now, I did love that she had some early 3-pointers, or some early perimeter shots in the game against Phoenix. So I like that. But there's still some shots that, not just Benijah, I think she's most noticeable to me, but overall, the New York Liberty are kind of missing some shots that I think they are more than capable of making, and are likely going to need to start making at a more consistent clip. You mentioned the 3-point shooting. This is a Phoenix team that has gotten much better. So a 28.1% clip last night for the New York Liberty, compared to 33.3% for the Phoenix Mercury. I just think overall the field goal percentage, needs to get a little bit better. But what are your thoughts on Benijah in particular? What are you seeing? What is kind of her vibe? What are we hearing from her at this point in the season?
Yeah, so I went to practice on Tuesday, and I was able to chat with B after she finished her workouts. I asked her, how she felt the sort of the flow of the offense is at this point, and she said she's still, like, she and the team are still figuring it out. Like they're still sort of ironing things out. And I think it's evident. Like there are games like Washington where she was really like locked in, especially late, and she made those clutch baskets. Even last night, she hit the floater from like 18 that sort of sealed the game right there. So I think for her, it's just a matter of, okay, defenses are playing me this way. Here's how I attack. I'm thinking, because one of the guys in press row noticed it last night. They haven't been able to get her the ball in the low block as much so far this year. It's just a matter of sort of like figuring out how to sort of get to that point. Because last year, every time that a team would put like their weakest defender, just as an example, because Indiana's playing right now, like the Fever would put Kelsey Mitchell on her, and then all of a sudden it's okay. B gets it up. She's going to back her down. Left hand sweeping hook, 2 points every time. like you see it sometimes, but not that much. I guess it's just a matter of like everyone trying to sort of like adjust to their nice newer roles in a sense of like and sort of getting that rhythm throughout the year. So I think it's something where I'd say give her about a month and like her numbers will be back where you want it to be on the offensive side. On a defensive front, we had her in the scrum last night, and throughout the week, the team was to a player talking about communication and just sort of like defensive consistency. Asked them like, "How do you guys think you did on that front?" She's like, "Yeah, like our communication really got us to the finish line with that. Like we were talking, the switches were a lot crisper, a lot cleaner. Like they worked on that specifically in practice." So I think on the defensive front, she's as great as usual. And even last night, the offense was a little bit choppy, but the defense was locked in from beginning to end. So I think on that side of the ball, B is consistently excellent. And I think especially with all the responsibilities she has, it may be a moment where she sort of dials it back a little bit on offense to sort of like give a little bit more on defense. And I think with the talent that's there and with Sabrina sort of escalating her role on offense a little bit more, it
Yeah.
allows everyone else to sort of like lock in a little bit more on the defensive front. Like the stronger defenders in the starting five can put a little bit more juice there while taking back a little bit on offense because they know that their starting two guard is dynamic and really heating up and getting to the free throw line in that regard. So it's a lot of push and pull for the team.
Yeah.
Like yeah, it's like it's like a lot of like I think especially what happens with like loud losses like Saturday was when they just what everyone looked so like with the exception of like maybe 5-inch, like no one put anything good on tape Saturday. So
Yeah.
I think for days like that, all the sort of like all the things underneath that may not be like a 4 alarm fire kind of concern, they become that based off where you lost, how you lost, and that it was
Right.
on national TV where everybody sees it. Like those kind of losses really sort of like create more noise in a way. And I think that lean with it, rock with it. I agree. Like they're locked in. Yeah, like they're incredibly locked in. And I think that one play in particular from last night that really showed how locked in B is on defense. Like towards the end of the game, when Copper got to the basket and Benijah had her on, like Benijah was matched up with her. Like Copper tried to like sort of fade to her left, and then B stayed with her the whole time. And then at the last second, JJ is right there and then force a turnover that sealed the game. Like that level of communication and sort of ESP with teammates is so valuable, and you get that with consistent reps. And being
Yeah.
JJ in particular, being dialed in the way that they are, and JJ's ability to sort of like throw every sort of like defensive coverage off kilter, that part matters a lot. So even if
Yeah.
games aren't really even if it's not the beautiful game Liberty offense we saw last year, you can still sort of like you mentioned it last year. I think you even asked somebody. It's like sometimes you got to thug it out, and he did last night.
Yep, we talked about that. JJ said that.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right. We talked about that. And that is for me what anytime I get a little frustrated watching this year's New York Liberty team, I'm like, but they are thugging it out. I love that you mentioned that. That's perfect because it's not looking pretty. And it didn't always look pretty last year, but the wins, to your point, the wins on national television, the wins, especially once they got through the kind of humps of really around this time of the year, even a little deeper. They
Yeah.
didn't really come into a consistent New York Liberty team until I'd say like that all-star break kind of
Yeah.
area. And JJ had, multiple, double-digit rebound games and things like that. Things were really clicking.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Erica,
No, go ahead.
there's something I want to ask you too. I was thinking about it last night. I didn't get to ask the players this, so I wonder what you think. Like this was I would say their second close game of the season. Like opening night against the Mystics, I would say count as one. Everything else has been sort of comfortable wins or blowout losses. I
Right.
guess I wonder from your vantage point, how do you think a close win like last night against a good Phoenix team, how do you think that will sort of help the team sort of like find its bearings in a way?
Yeah, and I mean, Jen says it right here. I'll take the ugly win. And I think the value added is that when you get to a playoff series, which again, the New York Liberty had a really grinded, you talk about thug it out. They had to thug out that win and earned every point in that series against Connecticut. And they didn't not have that juice. They did not have that chip. And arguably, we found out after the fact, but Sabrina was not 100% healthy also for the Vegas series. JJ seemed gassed, and we found out after the fact, again through the Shattered Glass documentary, that she was having her foot evaluated just to make sure that any discomfort that she maybe was feeling was not sliding back into something that became something that needed surgery. I think Stewie was absolutely gassed. Sloot seemed a little bit out of it. So thugging out these wins, having these close calls early is a reminder in case you needed one. And I mean, I love this WNBA season because like folks are out here playing basketball like it's their job. You feel me? Like people out here trying to get this money. They trying to keep their endorsements. They trying to get that free agency, get a bag. Like it's just, I mean, I'm somewhat joking, but like it just feels like there's a level of intensity straight out the gate this year that I absolutely love. So, you have to be ready. You have to be prepared. And maybe this is where I am a little bit more resigned to be comfortable with some of the off-season moves, because not that I felt that they were overly anxious at times last year, but there was an unease. Like if the team, you could tell when they were uneasy. I think they're pretty good stone face. They don't give give as a team a lot away. Like individual players, yes, if their tell, so to speak. But I think that this team is a very small sample size, but I think they have potential to be a little bit more resilient. And so winning games like this, even losing games the way they've lost them, hopefully will give them more resolve. And I think that's going to be important. I mean, our Test Effect podcast, friends here of the pod, ugly, cute, a win is a win. They just have to figure out how to make life easier. I like that. Definitely a lot to learn from via film. I love that. Playing like Rent is a day late. I love the energy this season. Yeah, exactly. Jen saying every team is all in. But I wanted to come back to something here. Let's see. Folks want to talk about the refs. We could do that. We could definitely do that. Just defensively, what the New York Liberty are doing. I just looked at some of the WNBA advanced stats. As far as defensive rating, the New York Liberty actually have the 4th best defensive rating to this point in the season. And, I think a lot of that is from how they can play in the paint. And a lot of that is the work that Stewie is doing. You mentioned Benijah. We know that she a lot of times has been the heartbeat, if you will, for the defense. But I think Stewie is showing why she is a two-way player. JJ, obviously, as a rim protector, as a rebounder. So I like that. I like what we're seeing there. The assist to turnover ratio, I think, is something New York Liberty is going to want to improve upon. They're kind of middle of the pack right now with a 1.27 ratio. So, there's definitely some things to improve around or improve upon, excuse me. Okay, this is interesting. And Brian, I'm actually going to get you to chime in here too. What's the beef between the Liberty and the Mercury yesterday, Erica? Listen, like you said, this is like my response is Brian said it already. This is a game that you have to thug out to win. And listen, sometimes when you got to thug things out, you're not playing no respectability basketball. That's all I got to say about that. I don't know how you feel.
So, all right. So it started with like it for newer fans of the WNBA.
Oh, you're taking it all the way back.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a team that is all about antics and antics of whatever sort, name your antics, it's the Phoenix Mercury. Oh, players who cuss at the refs. We have the all-time leader in technicals wearing number 3. You have another person who yells at the refs. Now she's number 9 these days. She's no longer number 0. Got that. Another player that pretty much everybody dislikes, Sophie Cunningham. There's if 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 there are antics you're looking for, Phoenix has them for you.
Fast.
And we saw that in like it started towards the end of the half when Benijah made a basket and Sophie Cunningham sort of flicked their hair at her, and then B got up on her and was like, what? And then at half, Sophie was like this, and then Benijah, being Benijah, like immediately did it back too. So it started there. And then in the fourth, we really like from where I was, like I looked down at my computer, and then all of a sudden I heard like an anxious sort of tone in the crowd, and then I see Shook Sutton KT, and Kayla being Kayla wasn't backing down or moving. So it was like it was almost like a what are you doing talking to me like this kind of thing, like relax. And I think that especially like that woke up the crowd, which was already great before. Like we talk about this all the time. Like New York basketball crowds are like probably like my top 10 favorite things like in the world. Yep. And like that crowd, like it was great before. Like they just went to like 20 for the rest of the way. And
the players talked about that, or they were asked about that post game too, which was interesting.
Like, you could feel it, and it made for such a great atmosphere. And you know, we talk a lot about just how, in the context of Spoon last time, we talked about just like how that energy you need to be a great young basketball player. And then Kayla was really the spark for that. Like even before, like she's diving for loose balls, really giving that energy that keeps you there in that moment. So they were really able to sort of like harness that. And in the post game, to a player, they were like, yo, like we knew it was intense, we knew it was tough. The crowd gave us that extra lift, but we knew what to do. And you know, Benijah mentioned that they knew Phoenix was tough. They knew that Phoenix was going to do their thing, so they had to be ready for it. And I don't think we had the unfortunate news of telling Kayla Thornton that she got a tech on that play, because I don't think we didn't know. Like Brian didn't know either, because she was like, I think one of the guys said that you got a tech on that play. She's like, she looked at us, then she looked at Brian, the PR guy, and then she looked at us again and was like, yep, we got a tech, and she didn't know, which I found to be
unbothered.
Yeah, I found that to be hysterical. Like
that is
especially
so funny.
when you're locked in, it's like, oh, this person with the whistle, you don't exist.
Irrelevant.
Like, irrelevant.
That is hilarious.
You know, whatever you talk about, I ain't hearing it. You can just.
And see, here's the thing for me. This is why I love like that this game, like the choppiness of the game. There was very little flow after a certain point in the game because of all this. Like it just was getting a little crazy, and then it felt like in the fourth quarter, like everything was getting reviewed. Like who hit the ball when, did so and so flop. I mean, I'll just put it this way. We've talked about Sabrina and the difference between when she goes strong to the basket or strong on a play, stay strong on her feet, and when she's going for a call. I just want to see a little bit better of a balance and have her just go and not worry and let the refs do what they're going to do or don't do what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, like I think Sabrina has the physical strength and the mentality to just dribble the ball and say, they could freaking try to nuke me with they get the codes from the president. And I promise you this ball, is going in the basket. Period. Like she has that level in her, and I want her to use it a little bit more. That's all I really got to say about officiating. I mean, it did look a little crazy to me at times, and obviously Phoenix was very frustrated at a certain point in time. And I will say this also, I don't think this was necessarily the case, because I think also New York was frustrated, but there's also some of that at some point in the game. If you know that's the way the game is being called, and if it's a tight game the way it is, and you happen to be in the lead, you might take some chances that you wouldn't under normal circumstances, if anything, to stop the clock and even to get the other team pissed off, because now they're on the ropes. Like, you did enough to keep the lead. Listen, there's some gamesmanship that happens sometimes, Brian. You feel me? Like, listen, that's just going to happen.
Yeah, it's almost like in baseball where you know that an umpire has a particular strike zone, and it's like, oh, this isn't the strike zone. This is the strike zone tonight. You adjust and deal with it.
Exactly. Do you feel like #unquick is faster this season? This is hilarious. This is an interesting question because my answer in the hashtag unquick is no. However, the reason that I am very particular with Sabrina about her first step is because it's noticeably, and maybe we even say indecisive, but it's not indecisive. That's me being a little nice. It's unquick. It's noticeably unquick from other times when she's on the court. When she's in motion, she is moving at us at a perfect rate. For, like, is she super fast? Is she the fastest WNBA player? Absolutely not. She don't win no foot races. You feel me? But she does enough because, again, she's strong. So do I feel like she's faster this season? I thought it was interesting. I've been watching, keeping up with the All Access. And so the New York Liberty dropped to All Access where Sandy Brondello says she actually thinks Sabrina's release is quicker, which I loved. And then I was like, you know what? I think she's right. Like, I hadn't pinpointed that until I heard it. And then as soon as I heard it, I was like, you know what? I think Sandy is right. So again, it's a very specific thing where I think Sabrina is unquick. And it's just unfortunate because as a guard, that first step can be make or break sometimes. That being said, I do, and maybe I don't elaborate on this as much, but I do think that even though it's a little unquick for me, that first stride, I think that more often than not, and she's proving it this season, more often than not, when she can get downhill, she can find ground. She can find space. And I don't think, myself included, she gets enough credit for doing that. But we're starting to see it more because she's been tasked. She challenged herself. And it sounds like the coaching staff also challenged her a little bit to put that ball down, get to the basket, and either get herself, a high quality shot or penetrate so that she can dish out to someone who has a better look.
Yeah, and I think that I think one of the key things is that leverage matters a lot. And if you're able to sort of because I have to ask about it one of these days, but she's really good at running off screens at particular angles. Yeah. So if you're trying to tailor, she goes up them so tight, you can't really keep up. And then once she gets
uses space very well.
Yeah, once she sort of gets that, once she sort of gets it on the go, she's able to use her arms to create space, very subtle. It's not overly exaggerated when it comes to sort of pushing off and creating leverage in that way. So she's able to do that. She's using the floater a lot more this year compared to last year. And, just to sort of broaden out just slightly towards Indiana in the sense. And we talk a lot about how, I guess there was sort of discussion about sort of Kaitlyn Clark taking more mid-range jumpers and things like that. And it's maybe, but if you're able to use that floater, because sometimes, you're not going to be able to go up over Ezzy McGregor in the paint. You got to get the floater up, put a little touch on it, do that. Sabrina has gotten really good at that. And I think especially, when they see matchups like Connecticut or Las Vegas and Bree Jones is back there, Asia Wilson's waiting for you.
Come on.
Able to use that floater, she's going to have to come a little bit more, and then that's going to create some things for somebody else. So I think it's just a matter of using.
I love this. Unquick has added some tricks to her bag this year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that matters a lot, especially because I think when once the Liberty hit the highest stakes basketball games in the postseason, these every night is we were there for those the first round for Washington and the second round in Connecticut. Those were it was hand-to-hand combat every night.
For real.
And those baskets are going to be hard. Those 3 pointers are going to be hard to come by. Your legs going to be tired. It's going to be defenses are locked in because ain't no travel in between. I'm just letting you only, so I know what you're going to be doing. So if you're able to sort of use that space, get to the rim, use those floaters, get create pressure to draw fouls, get to the line, things in that way, everything else is going to be so much smoother for her. And I think that, and I think for her it's a situation where she really took to building on her successful 22, her successful 23. I think it speaks to a level of, preparedness and professionalism for her in the organization, not to sort of settle and be okay, I set the record for 3-pointers last year. Can I break that record? Right. No, I want you to do this new thing. And I want you to really add into that because we know you can shoot threes. You're the best. You're the best of your cohort doing that.
Correct.
I want you to get downhill. I want you to initiate the offense. I want you to get us out in transition more. I want you to do these things. And I think it's a testament to her preparedness and just like her dedication to the craft that she's really made a concerted effort with that.
Yeah, I mean, I dig it. I dig all of it. I do want to talk a little bit about the game against Washington, because I think this is another interesting match in hockey. We've talked about this before, but sometimes they call matchups like this kind of like trap games. So I want to think about that a little bit. But first, we have this question from Green with it, rock with it, which I love. Thoughts on the Unrivaled launch today? So Unrivaled, for those who are unfamiliar, is a 3-on-3 modified full court league that is starting, and it is the co-founders were announced around All-Star last year. So maybe around this time, a little bit later last season, Breanna Stewart, our very own Stewie, and her UConn counterpart, Nafisa Collier, who of course plays with the aforementioned Minnesota Lynx. They are co-founding this league. Now, the news that came out today included some additional investors and some additional information, including that this will be the league with the highest average. I want to make sure to emphasize that the highest average salary. And so it is a league that is going to be similar to those who are familiar with the Athletes Unlimited model. It's going to run for a spurt of time. So it won't be like a full WNBA season where it's months. Instead, it's, I believe it's 8 weeks. So basically 2 months. So very similar to the Athletes Unlimited model, except Athletes Unlimited is 5-on-5. This is expected to be a 3-on-3 model. In addition to the average salary being the highest ever, or at least that's what's being reported, there will also be equity. Players will get equity in the league. And they actually announced that Chelsea Gray was going to be one of the founding players of this league. I don't know that they've made any other announcements. I didn't see any other names, players that are going to play in the league attached. They did note some investors, which includes Alex Morgan. I forget. There are some other, notable.
Anthony.
Yeah.
Bunch of guys.
Ariema was actually on the list, which I thought was interesting. So I think, this is interesting. I did not see that. Response metrics on social were over 1 billion today. That's really interesting. And so if I did the math correct, which is a big if, because numbers somewhat scare me. I wish I was kidding, but I'm not. So the average WNBA salary is, and that has increased in the last, with the last CBA. But if I did that correctly, look, I just lost it. Hold on, where'd it go? Okay, the average WNBA salary right now is $147,775, excuse me. And that is as of the 2023 WNBA draft. But again, we're still operating under that same collective bargaining agreement. So those numbers, as far as base salary, should not change. Want to also note that, of course, WNBA players can be in team marketing agreements, league marketing agreements. They can have their sponsorships and endorsements, especially those who had NIL, a number of other ways that they can make an income, but we're talking about base salary. So if you just did, 100 and what did I just say? 147? Yeah. So I think I rounded it up to 150. That's like $4.5 million, I believe, in salary alone for the league. So those investors are at least putting out that much money, and of course more, because they have overhead, they have fees for whatever arenas, all kinds of stuff. So, but that's just what we're talking about for base salary, because I should say they're expecting to have 30 players in this 3-on-3. So that's what we know. That's what I should say. That's what I know so far. I think we're going to get more details. They are planning to launch in January 2025, and they will do their single site season in Miami. I love the comment from Stewie. She was like, something to the effect of like nothing against New York, but like, something about like sunshine never hurt nobody. Which I freaking loved. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I got a reason to go to Florida in January. So let's go.
Like,
But Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess one quick weather related thought, like people I hate snow generally because it's like who got to clean it up? Like, it's so beautiful, the snow's so fluffy.
Right, until you got to shovel.
And you've never walked in slush. Like New York slush,
not fun.
horrible. Like you don't want it. So if you can go somewhere warm, do it. Do that every time.
Absolutely.
And, broadly speaking, I had so many like thoughts about it. One was that having another outlet is so valuable. Like you have players who like you don't want to have a situation where players feel like they have to do overseas basketball to supplement their income. It's like you can do it if you want to. Like a Niara, for example, she went and then to sort of build her skills. So it's like you can do it because you want to. Like you don't want to have a situation where it's like you have to grind just to like have a stable living as a professional athlete. So having that option, having more options is always great. Especially having options stateside if you're like an American-born player or someone who's been in the U.S. for a long time. Like you can stay put here and not have to deal with the geopolitics of the world around you in that regard. Like you're still dealing with it here because the world is the world, but it's like you're doing it in a place where you're more accessible to certain things that may not be available on the other side of the world, kind of thing. Right. And something else I thought about, some of the investors and people involved were one who was one guy, John Skipper, I think he was the former head of ESPN, and then another gentleman who I believe was the former head of TNT, and they're working on the media rights piece. And I find that to be incredibly fascinating because the W is due up for TV in about a year. Yeah. And Erica and I, we talked about it with some friends in Brooklyn like a few weeks back. Like this is one that the league has to get right. Like like the moment is here. Like you gotta anything that's a below standard number is we've got to make changes upstairs. That's how drastic it is. Like you gotta get it right. And if you're connected with people who have gotten these huge deals before for these sports leagues for like millions and billions of dollars, if you're plugged in with the right people and they can sort of get you to the other right people to make something happen and have the games accessible, have them in places where everyone can get to, have it so that way it's not like Asia Wilson told us last year when she came to Brooklyn, you have to jump like the 17 channels to find the game. Like if it's something where you can just like get it like right here, right now, it's accessible, easy to get, that's going to be great. And having the money behind it, I think is going to be really fantastic too. Like you can really sort of take all the momentum and all the success that the players have been building for like the past decade and change. You can really take that and sort of like scale it up to a whole new level. So I think that's going to be really amazing and awesome. So I'm excited to see the.
Hey, Aloysius, we'll catch you when you get above ground. Safe travels.
Yeah, so being able to really sort of like make those connections and sort of like strike a really great sort of like streaming television sort of contract, I think goes a long way, and I think gives the W a roadmap to follow. So that way, when it's time for them to negotiate with these networks, if one place isn't giving you what you want, you have other places and people you're connected to who can get you the number that you deserve and are angling for. So it gives you that. So I'm excited for that part. And for the encore piece, I'm excited. My brain is so used to 5-on-5 these days. Like I want to see how it's. I want to see you guys in a little tighter circumstances with just 3-on-3. Like okay, you have your big, you have your wing, you have your guard. How are you guys gonna make it work? And what lineup combinations, what 3-man teams or 3-woman teams, excuse me, are you gonna run? Like I want to see that. Like I want to see players in like new environments. So it's like sort of working on new muscles in front of us. Like I'm excited to see how that looks as well too. So the on-court stuff, I think is going to be fantastic. Once we get a full beat of the players who are going to be there for Unrivaled, I think will give us an even better and cooler look. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I did not see the oops, this is the wrong comment. I did not see the Today Show segment. I was still asleep, especially because that was 6 or however it was an hour earlier for me. I was asleep,
What?
but I can guarantee I was asleep. But I think to your point, we're gonna get an announcement later, is what Stewie said with Robin Roberts on the players. I think that's gonna be really interesting because there's some players that we haven't seen do Athletes Unlimited. Also, I just saw in the USA Today, they said average salary for the WNBA is about 115. Either way, they're spending at least 3.5 to 4.5 mil on salary alone per the estimations that we've seen. Jen said, me neither. I watched it on social. There you go. Yeah, I haven't caught up with all the clips yet. But let's go back to this Liberty squad here, because we have another game coming up this week against, again, an opponent that could be a quote unquote trap game, and that is the Washington Mystics. Now, the Mystics have been struggling. We don't have the resident Mystics expert on with us tonight, but I think grinding out and gutting out a win should put the Liberty in a good position to really hand it to the Mystics. And if they can't find their groove against a team that is winless, not to say that it's a slam dunk, but momentum is definitely on the Liberty side here, Brian. What do you want to see them be able to do, especially knowing that the Mystics haven't quite figured it all out?
Yeah, one thing I think is going to be essential is don't turn the ball over. Even you turn it over 18 times, it could be any team in the world. It could be the best team you've ever seen or the worst team you've ever seen. Like, sooner or later, you're going to get in trouble, and big trouble at that. Yep. So if they take care of the ball, they make the most out of every possession, they'll really be able to sort of like wear Washington down throughout the night. And I think the Liberty are also catching the Mystics at a good time, because I believe Sykes is still out with her ankle injury. So you're missing, a player who's hell on wheels and has given you trouble for the past many years. So if that player is not at full strength or even out, it gives you more room to sort of key in on Ariel Atkins. We saw how much Shakira Austin was great in the first game. Now that you have more time to sort of study how she looks in this new role for her, it gives you a better chance to sort of game plan and adjust to accommodate her unique skills and her improving game. So I'm looking forward to it. I think what would help the Liberty is if they get off to a really strong start. That way, I would say a great first quarter for them will be if they're up at least 8 to 10 points. That way it gives you comfort, gives you room to really sort of like push the lead even further, have the Mystics sort of like force themselves into making mistakes, trying to keep up. And then from there, you can really sort of like place your imprint on the game.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I like what you're saying about turnovers. You just can't do that. You want to be an elite team. We've talked about it in the last handful of episodes. The whole league has gotten better, and you're a team that a lot of people, let me put it this way, you're a runner-up, and there's a part of this team that, of course, wants to get at minimum back to the finals, right? But you cannot bank on that if you don't do the little things. So taking care of the ball. Also, like, some of the passing for me has been a little bit uncharacteristic and off. This is a team that was able to, and with Vandersloot in particular, able to lead the league in assists. They get offense through having a lot of assists, and some of the passes have been behind players, or there was one play where Stewie was cutting, but Sab was getting ready to pass the ball off the wing, and that was one of those that got reviewed or something stupid like that. But even without having to look at the review for who touched it last, like that was a pass behind Stewie. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just wasn't a high quality pass. So we've talked about them maybe a little bit more last year about high quality shots, because I don't think the shot selection isn't the problem this year. I think they're just not falling for whatever reason. But the passing selection is a little bit off to me. The recipe's not quite there. So I agree with, though, a lot of what you said. This is a Washington team that, if the Liberty don't do some of those things, is more than qualified to take advantage. They're still kind of working Austin back in, ironically, or not ironically, but she did end up getting hurt against the Liberty, which had her out for a majority of last season. But you still have Ariel Adkins. Aaliyah Edwards is making contributions early, and they're putting some trust in her. And Stewie is going to be Stewie. I do want to see a little bit more integration of Benijah Laney, of Kayla Thornton. I think those are two players that the New York Liberty need to have assuredly comfortable once we start getting later into the season. So I think there's a little bit of, if that is something that's chemistry wise or just kind of checking in with those players a little bit more, but I want to see their contributions be a little bit more consistent. But this should be a game, right? This, in theory, should be a team that the New York Liberty can take care of. Oh, I like this comment here from Jen, though. I want more Sabali. I love Niara Sabali's game. Like the Sabali sisters, just overall, like I just love their contributions when they can stay healthy, which unfortunately has been a little bit of a bugaboo. I think more Sabali is good. I think Sabali is still a little undersized for what I think she's being utilized for the New York Liberty. That being said, she's very quick to learn. She bounces back and recovers very quickly when she maybe finds herself in a position where she's a little out of place. Like if you didn't know what the New York Liberty first unit looked like, you almost wouldn't know, because Sabali, I feel like she can really clean things up. Damien saying, though, I want more Davis other than Sabali. I think you don't really lose anything in the big picture by getting both of them some touches. That being said, I think, Brian, it goes to whether the first unit can do what they need to do. And to your point, it goes to whether that first unit is going to be able to start early.
Yeah, it's one of those things, I think if you want to see more of the bench, you need the starters to really handle business properly to start the game. Like that was one of the huge problems in Minnesota. Like they came out so flat, it just made everything impossible to keep up. Like they wound up catching up, but then it's like we spent all our energy to tie this up. Now the game is still going, and then whoops, we're out of gas again. We lose by 20. So I think getting off to strong starts allows for Sandy to sort of delve into more of the rotation and more of the bench, and you can sort of like sit people for a little bit longer because you have a comfortable lead and you can trust your second unit to do what they need to do. So I think naturally we'll see more Niara. Like she's still on a minutes restriction. We don't know when it's going to be lifted. Like Sandy has given like a set, okay, by this day, Niara can up her minutes to a higher number. So they're still gradually sort of like building her up in that regard, letting her sort of like implement the skills she picked up in Prague and EuroLeague, letting her do that gradually, which I think is sort of similar to what they're doing with Davis as well, in the sense that like after practice, like the coaching staff stayed with her and worked with her on various drills, sort of like handoffs, various things to sort of build her skill set and sort of like build those things to get her more acclimated and more comfortable and sort of like tapping into new parts of her game. So I think gradually we'll sort of see how it looks for her. But I think of the two, Sabali is going to be the first one up because you need that backup big, and she's shown that she can play next to JJ, she can play next to Stewie, or even if she's just the only center on the court and it's just her, Thornton, KB, 5-ish, and Sabrina. Like she's shown she can fit various kind of roles, which I think is fantastic for her. So I would say that just gradually like let her build herself up, let her do what she does in that way. And then I think you'll continue seeing the results.
Yeah, and this just kind of goes to Damien's, what are your expectations? I think we kind of answered that. I think I want to get to the second part of this, especially because social media. I got an alert about this game, which just went final, but I didn't even see the score first. I saw a notification from the score about Kaitlyn Clark and a former Indiana Fever player, but we'll get to that in a minute. Expectations for Friday's game. This is a winnable game for the New York Liberty. Not just because they're coming off of a win, not just because Washington is winless, but because this is a New York Liberty team that, again, they thugged it out against Phoenix. They know what that feels like. They also had a 15-point lead against Phoenix. So in the same game, they had, kind of not full on extremes, but definitely opposite side of the spectrum type feels. So I want them to meet somewhere in the middle, right? I want them to move that third and fourth quarter rush to earlier in the game. I want them to minimize how many turnovers and how many times they give up a lead. Certainly a 10-point plus lead. So those are my expectations, or maybe more so my hopes, or like I like to do, not my predictions, but this is what needs to happen if the New York Liberty want to win against the Washington Mystics. Mm-hmm. But okay, Kaitlyn Clark is stepping it up as well, and the WNBA is more popular. I mean, sure, that's a comment about the WNBA being more popular. I think I'm just gonna, I don't really know how to respond to that without going into like a full-on thesis. But the Kaitlyn Clark thing is interesting because, some of y'all know that I write for CBS. And so we've done rookie rankings, and the rookie rankings that were done by a colleague are under some scrutiny. They have Kaitlyn Clark as the top rookie in the league right now, which I think is interesting. I believe she is outscoring right now Cameron Brink and Angel Reese, not by an exorbitant amount of points, but she, if I remember correctly, does have more points than either one of them. That being said, I'll just say she wouldn't have been my choice for, if you're ranking rookies, I don't think she would be number one. Is she top 5? Probably. Yeah. But 1 at this point right now, I don't know, Brian. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say that I think the comfort level is starting to get there. And you mentioned it in passing. Like, I like when, like, I feel like whenever you get to a new job, the first week it's like, oh, it's nice to meet everybody. I'm so happy to be here. And then as you get more comfortable, it's like, okay, I'm here now. And Kaitlyn likes to talk, which I like.
I like it too.
She be talking, like, people be like, "Oh, we gonna do this." No. She
ain't no punk.
Yeah, it's very much like the inverse of the Steph Curry so humble, but he talks a lot, and he'll get you out of here if you let him. And Kaitlyn is the same way. Like tonight during the game, Victoria, I don't know what happened particularly, but she started walking at Vivian's.
Yeah. Mute it. But so she takes a shot. It's a long shot, and then she's kind of backing up, but not looking where she is. Vivian's had already tried to. She's like kind of running up the court while the shot went up, and so it looks like the camera kind of pans away, but it looks like Kaitlyn Clark and Vivian's were about to run into each other, and then the camera pulled away, and then the camera comes back on them, and you see Vivian's must have said something to Kaitlyn, because she does like kind of one of these, and like kind of, I can't read her lips and what she was saying, but it was kind of like, what are you, like, get the hell out of here, what are you talking about? And then Vivian's is walking towards her and kind of like brushes up against her shoulder, to where Kaitlyn was like, we doing this? And then Boston comes in, so we don't get to see what potentially could happen. But yeah, I mean, Kaitlyn ain't no punk. Kaitlyn ain't no punk. And maybe, wait a minute, I don't know. Now I go back and forth. At first I thought Vivian's maybe instigated the brush up, but I think Kaitlyn kind of like went chest bumped her.
Oh, she started. Oh boy.
Yeah, but not like we're teammates chest bump, if you know what I mean. Like that was like she was checking somebody kind of chest bump.
Now that you mention it, there's a weird sort of like subplot to the Fever season, and that people been trying them, man. Like we saw it, like, JJ, she done ran up on Aaliyah Boston. Alyssa Thomas, man. Alyssa Thomas, boy, she making enemies with some fan bases, boy. Well,
AT always been on that. I mean, I think she gets more heat than, I'm like, come on. AT plays that way. Just like DT's gonna punch a door, AT's gonna get in somebody's face and suck her damn teeth. That's just what she does. She sucks her teeth off. She does it all the time. Like, come on.
Making us feel bad that we call the foul on her. Like, what?
Yo, AT is hilarious. Or like Angel's gonna make a grimacing face. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just some things that some players do. And I feel like we can't be out here taking it all to heart. I do think it's hilarious, though, to see the exchange singularly, right? in a vacuum, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
But I'll be honest, once I was like over like just the fun of the drama, right? Because it's just drama. It's not, and I think, I thought about this earlier as we were being asked about the drama between the New York Liberty and the Washington Mystics. But what I did see is Tosh Cloud, or excuse me, I said Mystics. I meant Phoenix because she now plays with Phoenix. Tosh Cloud broke it down excellently. She's like, listen, I'm going to go and play. I'm paraphrasing. She's like, I'm going to play hard against Breanna Stewart every damn day. Of course, I want to beat the brakes off of her. Why wouldn't I? But she's a great competitor, and I want to compete against a great competitor. And she set the record straight in case anyone was not aware. Yeah. Natasha Cloud and a lot of other people, I can't speak for everyone, but I would say an overwhelming majority of the WNBA and basketball has nothing but respect for Breanna Stewart. Now, does that mean that they want her to win when they're playing against her? Absolutely not. We're out here to win. We're out here to win individual awards. We're out here to win championships. We're out here to do all kinds of course, they don't want her to win, but once the game is over, if she beats you, she beats you. If you beat her, then you beat her. Like I just don't, it doesn't go further than that. And so I can't speak for every little skirmish that happens because some are more personal than others, either like personal, like they got a whole nother set of things maybe that are spilling onto the court. And some people do take things a little more personally, like Sid Colson apparently got told some things by Sab one time, and she basically made it whiteboard material. And game 4, Colson got the last laugh. Yeah. Resulted in a second consecutive ring. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just like Michael Jordan, The Last Dance. Like, that man made a living off of taking things personally. Now, does civilian Michael Jordan still hold those grudges? I mean, I can't speak for him. But when he got into competitor mode, when he got into that mentality, it was over. Oh, you dissed my socks? I'm going to drop 40 on your head, period. That's how that man operated. Like, I mean, like, does it make sense in the quote unquote real world? Absolutely not. It's a little bit, it's very intense, but that's what it takes to be an elite athlete.
Yeah. And I think and I think especially like you're right. Like, people like want to win. Like, and I think also a sign of like the ultimate respect. Like, if I see a player like Breanna Stewart, I know that, okay, I got to break my A+ game out for you. Like, because you are way too good for me to even like go halfway on this.
Yeah,
if I don't, I'm losing my 30 tonight. So I'm bringing my best effort every single time when I see you. And it's an ultimate sign of respect,
Exactly.
You want to, like, there are new people watching. It's like, okay, you may be here for A, B, and C, but I'm here. Watch what I do. Like, see how we work on this side. Like, you really, that's the best way to really grow the league. Like, you want it to be where everything feels like it has meaning and purpose. Like, you see players who are great off the court. They're dogs on the court. Like, they bring that energy. That's what you want to see. And I think that's where it makes it fun as a viewer and a person who's watching every night. Like, that's what I want. I don't want it to be where it's like, no one cares. It's just, I'm gonna let this person get theirs because, quote, for the greater good or whatever that means. Like, nah, like I got my things that need to get done. You can get on or get gone. Like, that's really it. And if you're really about it, you really want to see the best of the best do what they do. Like, you don't want them to just sort of like half-ass it, because if you want to see like 150 to 149 as far as scoring goes, nah, like, that's not how the game normally is. Like, I want to see you guys play your best, do what you do, and that's what's up.
I love it. Agreed. Stewie's so universally loved in the league, and you never see her in beef. Shawty just hoops, then plays with her kids. That's hilarious, yo. That's real, and that's why a person like Stewie and even Fee, right? That's why they can build this league, and they're creating other opportunities. And that's something else that Tosh Cloud said. She's like, you don't see the work that people like Stewie have been putting in, and she specifically talked about charter flights. She's like, so like miss me with everybody hates like Stewie. I almost said Sabrina, which that could be a interesting sitcom. Anyway, like she's like, no, like there are players that have been putting on for this league. And the sense that I always get, and I think this is where Breanna Stewart, comparative to other players, especially white players in the league, and throughout women's basketball, women's sports overall, this is where Stewie for me differs. Stewie is smart. She's just started being more vocal, but she's hella freaking smart. And Stewie is the type of person who, since especially, I mean, she's speaking a little bit more that now that she's in the New York market and she's not with Sue Bird anymore, but because I mean, everyone wants to talk to Sue, and Sue's also very smart and a great speaker. But both of them actually are examples of, especially, and I think it's important to say this, white queer women who maybe don't speak a lot, certainly not a lot about beef, to, you know, lean with it, rock with its point. They're just trying to play with their kids and their nieces and nephews, right? But when they do speak, they speak unapologetically, they speak powerfully, and they use the microphone that they're given, which is extended to them, which is not extended to their colleagues who are Black women, or more quote unquote masculine presenting at times. And they more often than not are amplifying more than just their voice. They're talking, I don't want to necessarily say it's always on behalf of, but definitely with the interests of more than just them in mind.
Yeah.
Stewie do that with social justice. I've seen Stewie do that with race. I've seen Stewie do that with, again, charter flights or just the CBA overall. And so I think it's just interesting to see Stewie become this kind of transformational kind of, you know, she's got that crossover appeal to a certain extent, you know, and her building that out and wanting to do that in women's basketball even while she's still playing.
Yeah, and I guess to that point, I wonder if we're both on the same wavelength here. I think it's also a sign of great union leadership. Like you have someone who is one of the sort of like tentpole stars of the league, in a position of influence as a VP within the union, and someone who won't back down from the league office. Like if it's an issue, like she'll say, "Okay, this is stupid." Like when the situation happened with BG last year, she's like, "You know, she should have never been in that situation to begin with," and that's the league's fault. Like, yeah, she doesn't back down from what she's saying when it comes to that. Like she's very like, "Hey, here's what I think. Like the league needs to do this," and then we push to get it. So I think having leadership having player leadership that's out there like that and able to go on various places, sort of speak up and not sort of like be deferential to the league. Because I remember last year, I asked Stewie just of like, you know, what it's like to sort of be in union leadership and have a situation where it's like the league office isn't dictating to you. It's like, okay, if we're trying something, we got to go through y'all. Like we're not just going to do anything unilaterally and just be like, what y'all going to do about it? It's we know that we have to do this. And I'm thinking also another point that just popped in my head. Like, you know, we talk a lot about like, you know, progressive sports leagues in a sense, but it's not really like the suits are the suits, and the suits will do what the money does. So I don't trust their values, but I trust the labor's values. And I think for the WNBA in particular, it's the labor that is like that entire 2020 season for social justice. The players put like they did. Okay.
Yeah, and there's a together. Speaking of Sue Bird, I think it's Sue Bird and Tracy Ellis Ross are producers on a new documentary about that season and about flipping a Senate seat in particular. Now, as a poli-sci major, I think that we broad strokes say that the WNBA single-handedly did that. I'm going to tell you factually that's incorrect. And there's a lot of people going back quite literally decades that deserve a little bit more respect. However, I understand because this is effectively going to be a sports documentary. And I hope that there are enough voices that can at least amplify what the WNBA did to help push the finish line, push this issue across the finish line within context of what people have been doing, as I said, literally for decades. And if you need a comp, because I'm talking poli-sci, that's my passion. It's almost like this kind of new fans conversation. We're seeing Becky Hammond go off, Tosh Cloud, Neko Gumake, Chene. It's kind of like how I feel about the WNBA single-handedly turning the Senate seat in Atlanta, Georgia, of all places, is kind of how a lot of people feel about new fans saying that Kaitlyn Clark is the only reason that the WNBA is on the rise. She's a part of it without question. The WNBA was a part of, again, getting that to the finish line without question. And there was a lot happening well before that. And it's no shame in saying, yeah, you need your aces in places, right? We've talked about that with the New York Liberty. Who's taking the last shot? And if we use that as the analogy, Kaitlyn Clark was the last straw for a lot of things from the league perspective and the guise of people with the money.
Yep.
But the players in the league set it up to when they did get that golden goose, that there was no more excuses.
Yeah.
And that's similarly how I feel about the Senate seat. But we can break that down. Brian, I might have to ask you and Misha to see if y'all have any interest in this. But I've noticed that there's a lot more documentaries about women in sports, but specifically starting with basketball.
Yeah.
And like there's a great one on oh man, I'm forgetting not Stacey Dales, Jackie Stiles. Yeah, so like if you know Jackie Stiles, like she might not have been in the league for a long time, but the impact, baby, you want to talk about impact? That child had impact, and her story is really fascinating. I saw one on her. We've talked about Shattered Glass in passing before. Unfinished Business, which is the New York Liberty one, which I hope soon enough there's reason to update that. Yeah, but there's a lot of cool ones. So check out Black Rosie Media, because hopefully after the Olympics, so probably a fall project, but want to do not a book club, but like a documentary, like a film club. Like let's watch documentaries about women in sports, particularly Black women in sports. So that's like a passion project of mine. So I'm glad Together's doing more. Who else just announced that they have, Dawn Staley, right? That we heard that's coming out. Dawn Staley's going to talk about, she's got some storytelling coming through. So yeah, we're going to keep you posted on that. But tomorrow's game is going to be a good one. The New York Liberty should be able to get it done. That being said, we talked about a lot of the things that need to happen. And this is not a surefire win. This is still a win, as is every win in theory. But again, I think there's a little bit more attention because I want to see now what the New York Liberty can do. You know, they got the hit in the lip, two losses back to back. They started crawling out of that, still got kind of knocked around though against Phoenix. Now can they come out on the other side and really dominate a game from start to finish, soup to nuts? That's the real challenge. And it just so happens that that challenge is packed into a team called the Washington Mystics, who again, this Liberty squad, historically, they have that history. Now, some players have moved around, especially on the Washington side. And I saw in the comments, we didn't get to it this time, but Steph Dolson. We talked about Steph Dolson and the absence of her strength and size. That's going to be interesting because if the New York Liberty falter in any of the goals that we've set for them, Brian, then Steph Dolson can easily be a difference maker. And now she's on the Mystics and not the Liberty.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those things where you never, when this is all over, you never want to look back with regret. So you got to make sure that as you're on the journey, you do enough good things so that way you can look back with a sense of accomplishment and relief once you sort of finish everything up.
Bye, Jen. Thanks so much for coming through. We're about to hop off as well, but I love what Lean With It, Rock With It is saying. Stewie, the definition of walking the walk, gives back to the community. Yes, always involved. Yep, Stewie can make an impact immediately on and off the court. And she continues to do so, even as, you and I talked about how her role might be changing, but for the better. Because if she gives, and I think this is also an important point that maybe we can get into another time, Brian, but I also find Stewie to be very even keeled and patient. She has very high expectations of herself, and the way that she leads it with her intensity is by how she shows up to practice, how she shows up for games. But I get the sense that when she's with her teammates, at least from everything that I've seen and from what I understand, she's very light. She doesn't package things in a way that's heavy or dismissive. She finds a way to, again, use her words very to the point. Doesn't say more than she has to, doesn't speak when she doesn't have to. And that's her leadership style. And so when you have a leader that can do that, can see kind of the, the big picture, I think she has the patience to kind of let Sab figure some things out, which it seems like she is. I think she has the patience and the humility, right, to understand that getting JJ touches is good for her. It's good for everyone. It's good for the goals of the team. And I get the sense that, it's not to say that she's not going to get her shots. Because we know she can make those shots. But I think that even though Sab needs to do a little bit more on the court, the off the court intangible things that we don't see in a box score, that's Stewie all the way. And I think that's really important as well. So I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. I'm feeling a little better. I wasn't feeling great going into the Phoenix game. I'm feeling a little bit better. I know there were some comments about Jonathan Kolb in the chat. We didn't get to those. I still am reserving, my final grade on the off season, depending on where we are come All-Star / Olympic break, because I can't say I'm comfortable. I'm not sure if there's enough gas in the tank to get all the way. But I'm feeling a little bit better about the roadmap, I guess I'll say. But all right, folks, thanks for joining us. Again, second episode. We just knew we wanted to break down that Phoenix game a little bit. Seemed like an important one. Not a make or break yet. We're not at that part in the season, but definitely one where the New York Liberty needed to show what they're made of. And I think they did that. So now the next test is again on Friday against the Washington Mystics. But for Brian Florentin, Erica L. Ayala here, you have been listening and or watching Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. We will catch you back next week. We'll drop, for those on the Patreon posse, I'll let you know when we're going to record. Also, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and set notifications, because that's how you'll know when we do some of our impromptu lives. But until then, enjoy the game. Let's go Liberty. I'm very curious to see what Ellie's going to whip out, like a whole institution on her own, which I love. But we'll catch you on the next stream. Peace out, everybody. Have a great night.